Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Palace podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network, as you just heard from our lovely jingle. I'm the host today, Dan Tanner, and I'm being joined today by one of our regulars, Wale Bakari, who probably enjoyed the match on the weekend probably a little bit more than I did. You all right, Wale?
Yeah, I loved every bit of it. I loved every bit of it. It was, as you know, I love it when Man United lose, and when and it's sweeter when they feel, oh, we've not played too badly, but we've just lost. I just love it. I just love it.
It's great fun watching social media, all the salty Man United fans at about the 85th minute, something like that. It was a lot of fun. Well, that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. The Man United result, if you didn't know, Palace went to Old Trafford and won 2-0. We'll probably also talk about some of the star players from that game. So maybe not the regulars like the obvious choices, but anybody else that needs a nice shout out. And to put the icing on the cake, that has been probably one of the best weekends to be a Palace fan. We're going to laugh and point at the Brighton result, which was a 7-0 thrubbing, absolute drubbing from Nottingham Forest the day before. So what a week to be a Palace fan. We go to Old Trafford, get a win, and you watch Brighton get thumped, basically. So I've been grinning from ear to ear basically all weekend. So let's get down into it. Let's go and talk about the Man United game first, because that's what we're here. We are the Daily Palace, so we're going to talk about the Palace game first. It was kind of, well, from a Man United point of view, it was kind of, well, I would definitely say disappointing, because they were kind of, well, lackluster is probably the only way to really describe what they were. Every single player in a Man United shirt had no creativity, no real drive. You had the sort of defenders. Yaro looked like he was out of his depth. Mateta just kind of walked past him without too many issues. Maguire was, well, a plank of wood like he normally is. He was getting done for pace on a regular basis. So, Wale, what do you think of the experiment that they had using Mainu as a solo attacker up front, as was kind of described in the formation when I think it was announced it was Fabregas, not Fab, what am I talking about? Fernandes, and then it was quickly corrected to be Mainu. So how do we think that experiment went?
Well, the result speaks for itself. It didn't go well, definitely. There was a time when he did find himself free in the box and created. It was a somewhat scary moment for Palace, but it wasn't a great experiment apparently. And you could argue that a lot of things being done by Ruben Amorim at the moment not turning out great, especially consistently. Yes, they've had a couple of good results. Went to Liverpool, got that 2-2 draw, played well. Went to Arsenal, got that win in the FA Cup, albeit through penalties in the after extra time. They have struggled in almost every game since Amorim came back. Even in games that they've won, they could easily have drawn against Rangers in the Europa League the other night. They needed Amad Diallo's very, very last-ditch exploits when he got a hat-trick in that, in that game to beat Southampton. So it's not as if it's been, smooth sailing since Amorim came. And a game against Crystal Palace was always going to be a tricky one for them, especially with Palace's run of form in the last couple of weeks. Palace have been playing some fearless football. Yes, there's been some disappointing results, bits of it in some of the past couple of weeks, but Palace have been largely playing fearless football, getting at the opponents, defending pretty well and taking their chances. And against United, once United did not take a couple of chances that came to them. At the start of the game, it was a bit balanced. They, although all through the game, had most of the possession naturally because they had, five bodies, three bodies, two guys in the middle of the pack, either the wing backs, Masraoui and the likes coming into the midfield a couple of times. But it was a question of desire eventually. Palace just began to exert themselves at some point in the game, and the longer it stayed at 0-0, it did look like whoever got the first goal was going to go on and take the result. And Palace came out in the second half, did not sit back. There was no unnecessary respect that you would see some teams give to United, particularly at Old Trafford. And Palace just went for it. Wonderfully created chances. Munoz, by the way, was fantastic in the game. Could have scored a goal for himself as well, And Mateta, poacher's instinct, got the first goal, and it was only a matter of time with United, looking for an equalizer. And by all ramification, it was a fantastic result for Palace. For whatever you say about United's form and the kind of performances that they've churned out this season, going away to Old Trafford and getting a result is good for Palace. Let's not even begin to talk about the fact that Palace are above them now, in the league. This is a team that we were disappointed about how things have gone. Some weeks ago, we've moaned and cried about results, about players not turning up, but all of a sudden, Palace are 12th in the league and on a good run of form, and you just really cannot be more proud of the boys. Although it's still a long way to go in the season, but if this form is going to continue, then it's only a matter of time before Palace gets into the top half of that table. And remember, we did talk about Mateta maybe eating that kind of run that he did eat last season in the second half. He's got 2 goals, 4 goals in the last 3 games thereabout. I'm really excited about the possibilities for Glasner's side, to be honest.
I think Mateta has crossed double figures now in the league. I think that was his 9th and 10th against Man United. So, if he's definitely a centre forward that a lot of teams seem to be kind of sleeping on, I would say. Not quite like you take him seriously, but he's not considered one of the elite attackers at the moment. But all that will change as he's sort of slowly going up that goal scorer tally. What I kind of got from the game was we did what we always do of plan A of sit back and try and contain the pressure as much as possible and hit them on the counter. But it worked to such perfection against Man United because they just didn't really do anything. Whenever they got the ball, it was snuffed out very quickly by Palace and pushed forward very quickly as well. They just couldn't track back with us. You had sort of Tyreek Mitchell, who I'm going to probably mention later, was really sort of fantastic in the first half. Definitely could have had 1 or 2 assists very early on. Henderson was fantastic as well. Definitely sort of making sure to just remind the Old Trafford faithful that this could have been your goalie. He could have been yours, but no, you've got Una instead. So dude, all right. He kept Man United in it for as long as probably humanly possible, but eventually it was just their defense was just so not there is the only way to describe it. Just getting either out of position or out muscled by Mateta and Sarr. So, but either way, we got a result at Old Trafford. Where everybody's happy about that. Everybody likes to beat Man United, regardless of if they're in good form or bad form. So, on that note, we'll take a quick break to thank the provider here, Zencaster, that allows us to do these podcasts on a daily basis. And after that, we're going to talk about some of the star players from Palace's side of the pitch. Wale's going to give a few, and I'll see if mine matches up. And then after that little break, then we'll don't worry, we will get to the Brighton bit. I assure you, we will get to the Brighton bit eventually. Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencaster came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great. And it's delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the description below to learn out more about Zencaster. Eventually, one of those days, I'm going to get that right. So, in one go without a problem. But we'll just gloss over that a little bit. But so now we're going to talk about some of the star players. We've mentioned a couple already, Mateta and Tyreek Mitchell for some. So, Wale, who are your kind of star players on the Palace side? To get the result. Yeah, basically, who are your star players? That's all we really want to know.
Mateta obviously got the 2 goals, did what he's used to doing, ran the channels well, competed, kept the defenders busy. You talk about Lenny Euro, who I've seen play, before coming to United. It's got a good future if it works, in the right team, because sometimes results of this nature, the way things are going at United, are quick to, kill the morale and confidence of a young defender, of a young player, whether a defender or not. But Mateta was great. Poacher's instinct to get the first goal, took the second goal well. I'm particularly happy for Lacroix in the art of the defense. It wasn't a great time for him against Brentford at home in the previous game, and against United, he was back to at least the level that we've consistently seen him at: measured, calm, snuffing out dangers as quickly as possible, and just working together with the other guys as a unit. And Chris Richards wasn't far behind as far as performances are concerned. You talk about all those guys. Again, Gay, who, by the way, has had yet again talks about him in the media, possibly leaving the club before the end of the transfer window. He didn't let that get to him, gave a solid performance. Anderson was ready when called upon. And Mitchell, who I hope is not, because it did seem like he was taken off with an eagle. I hope that doesn't turn out to be a big issue, but had a great game as well. Munoz, as I said, fantastic. Of course, he got the assist deservedly for the first goal. Could have been his goal. So, what I love about this Palace side is when the team has won a game, you could name a couple of players that have had a great performance, and against United was another one. Of course, if you would go to Old Trafford and get a victory, irrespective of Man United's form, you would need a number of players, bring in their A game, and a number of them did yesterday. Jefferson Lemma was fantastic as well. So, and I'm particularly happy about, again, the fact that Eze didn't even start the game, although when he came on, he brought the spark, but he didn't even start the game, and even before he came on, United was still under threat a lot by the Palace attacking line. So there's a lot to be optimistic about. I've been seeing a lot of Palace fans singing the praises of Olivier Glasner across a lot of fora with his setup and what he's getting out of the players. It does look like there might be a couple of additions. Well, it's just a couple of hours before the end of the transfer window. There might be a couple of additions. There's been talks about the one who's lost favour at Chelsea, the from a Leicester man. I don't know, for some reason his name is gone off my head now. The left back. Anyway,
Chilwell is who you're talking about, yeah?
Chilwell, thank you. and then there's been some other names mentioned as well. Maybe there will be one or two joining, but with the current squad, Glasner looks to be getting the best out of them, and I just really hope that this continues into the very tail end of the season.
Well, yeah, definitely don't forget the transfer window's got a couple more hours to go, so there might be a couple more. I'll leave that to you and Alex tomorrow to dissect the aftermath, because it's still a few more hours, and we've still got some time before it all goes. So, but my star players mentioned earlier was Mitchell in the first half. he was absolutely almost unplayable. Going forward, he could have gotten at least two assists. One came sort of very deep, and Munoz probably should have put it away. And I think another one, I think it was Sarr, it came to sort of in the middle of the 6-yard box, something like that. And it was, I think it was sort of scrambled away or sort of hit the post or something. And he probably nearly got a goal himself, actually. So he was unplayable. And on the defence, Mizrahi couldn't really get past him. Every single time he went up against Mitchell, it was just stopped, dead. Couldn't do him for pace, couldn't do him for positioning. He was just absolutely phenomenal. One of those sort of questions of why isn't he getting picked for England call-ups a little bit more with performances like that? But it's also the case of he doesn't always play like that. So it's probably the catch-22 when it comes to that. But my honourable mention you brought up earlier was the American international Chris Richards. Every time Garnacho came at him, he was like, no, not today. You're not going to get past me. And he just sort of stone cold sort of veteran player, just sort of, no, I'm not going to let you go. It's going to be one of those days where it's just a no from me. I don't think of any of the other real ones on the Palace side, but besides from Eze, who comes on as a super sub, because me and Alex were talking about him being possibly out injured for the next couple of weeks, and then I see him on the trotting on for a substitute, and I'm going, hang on, I was told he was injured. What's going on? No, you can't just trust the media anymore. You can't trust us. So that almost that entire last podcast, but that section was completely pointless. We were just talking about, right, what we're going to do without Eze, and he's like, oh no, he's just trotting on like no problem.
Well, I bet you were hoping to be wrong anyway, so turned out good.
I always like to be proved wrong, so. Right, I think on that note, we will move on to our next section, which we now get to go and have a bit of Schadenfreude at the expense of Brighton fans. So don't go away. We're just going to have a quick message from our network, and we'll be right back. This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts the fans first, bringing you the latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day. And we're back for the final section of what we're dubbing the best weekend to be a Palace fan, where we now get to point and laugh at Brighton's misfortune. Sorry, Brighton fans, if you're listening, or the Brighton daily Brighton team, which you're probably not, but whatever. So, if you didn't know, Brighton lost, not just lost, but spectacularly lost to Nottingham Forest 7-0 on the early game on Saturday. So we are now going to point and laugh at them because, well, they're our rivals, and we like to see our rivals lose. But it's more of a very weird one because it's these one-sided matches are not that uncommon in the Premiership. We had 2 or 3 other ones with Everton and Arsenal winning fairly comfortably on the weekend as well. But 7-0 is not that common, and especially not when it's Forest Brighton. You expect it from City, insert a newly promoted team here. You expect those kind of results, but not 2 essentially mid-table teams, and one of them being absolutely pasted. So, Wale, what are kind of your views on the game? Did you see it? But any real thoughts on it?
Incidentally, I saw the game. It was the
You actually watched it.
It was the first game inside. No, I saw it up until 4-0, and then I just thought, look, this is nonsense.
No, this is done. No, this is done. I'm done with it now.
Because to be honest, Brighton, Nottingham Forest, doing what they're doing, I'm quite glad for them. I'm hoping that they do well this season, maybe again the Champions League places. But they were getting too close to comfort, to Liverpool. I mean, too close for comfort to Liverpool, and I thought that maybe that if they just drop a couple of points, it was great when they were thrashed by Bournemouth the other week, which was a surprising result. What's interesting about the Brighton result is vintage Nottingham Forest. They don't have a lot of the ball, but every time they attack, you have your hands on your head, looking like you're in trouble. And that was what they did against Brighton. Brighton had the most of the ball, played. In fact, by the time it was 3-0, Brighton created almost as many chances as Nottingham Forest in the first half. They were playing well, making the passes. Welbeck had an effort pushed onto the bar by Mateta, who has been fantastic this season, just like many of the Brighton players. I mean, Nottingham Forest players. But for some reason, every time Anthony Elanga broke, Brighton just couldn't deal with him, and he kept putting these crosses in, and the goals just kept going in. Chris Wood, big shout out to him, got 3 goals. He's got 15 goals this season now, and it's just having the season of his life. So is the old Brighton team. It wasn't the result. With the scoreline wouldn't entirely tell you the full story. It wasn't as if Brighton were hopeless, but then they were hopeless, losing 7-0. But that's the sort of team Brighton can be sometimes, to be honest. They have all these players, and they appear like they could play on a Saturday with a team of 11 players, and on the next weekend have 9 new players in their 11, and you're wondering where did they get him from? And these are relatively good players who you can see the talent, you can see the prospect. They've got Facundo Buonanotte on loan. They have Enciso now on loan as well. These are players that can play for any mid-table team in the Premier League. So sometimes you just wonder why they struggle in the games that you expect them to win. For some reason, that they do that. And Nottingham Forest, coming from a 5-0 drop in themselves in the hands of Bournemouth, they wanted to make a statement, and they went on and scored 7, unresponded goals against Brighton. It was a funny result. I'm sure Brighton fans really not happy at the moment. They lost the previous game at home against Everton 1-0. They played Chelsea in the FA Cup. In this form that they're in, that might be the end of their run in the FA Cup. But sorry, guys, it's just Nottingham Forest. It really doesn't matter if they have 20% of the ball or 30% of the ball. Once they attack, they can get a goal, and they defends. Their defense is really mean at the moment. Milenkovic and Murillo really mean. I know, Olaino as well. These are guys that I had Mitoma in my FPL team because I was thinking it might be able to get an assist against against Forest, but I know just put him in his pocket. Well, not in his pocket because I know he's always wearing the big shorts, so just put him somewhere in there. Oh, no wonder the trousers felt really big because Mitoma must have been somewhere there, but I had to be taken off midway into the game. And Adingra, when he replaced him, didn't have a better time as well. He kept taking up positions that were interesting, but Forest just they did appear like they had a game plan. They've watched Brighton well. They've prepared for them well. They knew the kind of chances to restrict them to, and they did that perfectly. And great result for Forest. Great result for Palace, of course, and Palace fans. Sorry to Brighton. And by the way, when you look at the table, it's now just 4 points between Brighton and Palace. So maybe,
Yep.
just maybe, Palace might catch them in the league as well.
We're starting to catch them now. It's going to get close. We could. Yeah, it's going to get interesting the last couple of months. But yeah, what I saw of the highlights essentially on Sky was everything that could have gone wrong for Brighton did go wrong. When you concede an own goal fairly early on, everything that could have gone wrong did. Conceded a penalty. There was sort of, I think one of the goals, the keeper actually threw it to the attacker. He's trying to throw it to his. He just throws it almost directly to him. Like, can we just get this over and done with? But yeah, great weekend to be a Palace fan. Go up to Old Trafford, get 3 points, and watch your rival get absolutely drubbed. So let's keep the ball rolling. Essentially, let's keep this form going. And with that, I think that's pretty much everything. There is no new transfer rumours, not while we're recording at the moment. So I'll leave that with Wale and Alex tomorrow to dissect all the comings and goings and any of the aftermath. I think, yep, that's pretty much it. Thank you, Wale, for joining me.
Cheers, Dan.
No worries, mate. So with that, I think we'll call that a day. If you could give us a 5-star on whatever device you're listening on, be that Spotify or on Apple. Also, don't forget we are on the YouTube now. We are on the YouTube, which is the Global Sports Podcast Network channel. So hopefully we'll start getting all the playlists together, and you'll be able to find us whenever you want us. So until then, see you later.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.